Hi all, welcome to the channel Cloud Knowledge. Today in this video, we'll study about for each activity in ADF and Synapse Analytics pipelines. So if we go to the official documentation page by Microsoft, here under the Data Factory documentation, we have under the how-to guides for each activity, which is a control flow activity. And it says that for each activity defines a repeating control flow in ADF or Synapse pipelines. This activity is used to iterate over a collection and executes the specified activities in a loop. The loop implementation of this activity is similar to for each looping structure in programming languages. So if you have done some programming in any of the languages, then you must have encountered the looping concept, and the same looping concept, that is to iterate over a collection, is here called as for each activity. Okay, if we go down here, they have given the way of using for each activity by creating a variable at the pipeline level and then iterating through that variable, okay, and then applying some condition on that variable. Okay, so here comes the important point, that in any of the activities you create within the for each activity, you can reference the current item of the for each activity iterating through the items list, and how it is referenced as @item. Okay, so when we'll demonstrate, I'll show you how it is done. So here, if you go to the syntax also, it is written that the items property is the collection, and each item in the collection is referenced, or it is referred to by using the item. Okay, @item. And if we go down to the type properties, it has different properties, which while demonstration we'll come back here and read. Okay, so let's go to the data factory and create the pipeline for the demonstration of for each activity. Okay, so let's go to the ADF and to the auto tab. We'll create a new pipeline and we'll name this pipeline as pipeline for each. Okay, and what we have to do is, with the help of this for each activity, we will try to copy the files from one of the folder present in the storage account all at the same time to the target folder. Okay, so let's go to the storage account. So here, let's go to the container level and we'll go to the test input folder. And inside this test input folder, we have input files location, where we have 3 CSVs present. And inside this folder input files, we want to copy all the files together, all the CSVs from this location to a target location, okay, in the same storage account. So how we will do this? So there are multiple ways to do this operation. One is to browse up to the file location and copy one by one, and there are other ways too in the copy activity, but we will demonstrate this operation to copy all the CSVs from the source location to the target with the help of for each activity. Okay, so what we'll do is, we'll first try to connect up to this folder location in the pipeline. So in order to connect to this folder location and to access all the files which are present inside this folder, we have to use the get metadata activity, which I have already demonstrated in one of the videos under the playlist for the ADF activities. Okay, so the get metadata activity, when it is created up to this storage account folder level, it will give us all the files which are present here with the help of the field argument, which is called as child items. So let's go here in the pipeline and use the get metadata activity, which is present under the general tab. So we'll take the get metadata activity in the pipeline canvas and we'll go to the settings tab. General, we'll leave it as is, and we'll try to create the data set. So the data set will be the storage gen2. All the files are CSV, so we are selecting delimited text. We'll write here for each input dataset name. The link service we already have for that storage account. File path, we'll browse to the file path, that is the test input folder. Inside the input files location, we have all those CSVs and we want to copy them all together. So we'll not select file one by one. We'll just select the folder location. Click OK. And first we have header for the files, import schema none, and then click OK. Okay, so the data set we have selected, and once we select the data set in the get metadata activity, it will enable another option which is called as field list. And here we have to select the field list by clicking plus new, and from the argument list we have to select the child items. The child items will give the files and the folders which are present inside that storage location folder. Okay, so we have selected the child item here. So the settings for the get metadata activity is done. We'll validate this get metadata activity and then perform a debug run to see if the files are coming from the get metadata activity. So yeah, the get metadata activity succeeded. We have given the input to the get metadata activity, and in the output we have got the child items array with the attributes name and type and the 3 different CSVs. Okay, the first CSV, the second CSV, and the third CSV. If we maximize it, we can see the 3 items which were present there. Now, since we have to copy these items together to the target location, we have to iterate through these item location. Okay, so in order to perform the iteration over the child items which we have got from the get metadata activity, we will use the for each activity which is present under the iteration and conditional section with the name as for each. So we'll take that for each into the canvas and connect the get metadata activity to the for each activity. So it's connected, and now we'll click over the for each activity. So now we are in the for each activity. The general tab will leave as is. We'll go to the settings tab. So here, if we go to the settings tab, by default the sequential option is unchecked, means it will go for the parallel execution. And then for the parallel execution, we have the second option that is called as batch count, maximum number of parallel runs of inner activities. So whatever activities we define inside the for each, it will have the batch count. And if we have not defined the batch count and go to the official documentation to see, the batch count is used to set the controlling of the number of parallel execution. When it is sequential, it is set to false. This is the upper concurrency limit, but the for each activity will not always execute at this number. So the allowed values are maximum of 50. So here we can give the maximum count as 50, and by default, if we are not giving anything, the default value will be 20. If we will not define, it will take 20. Okay, and the items will give next. So since in our case inside the test input folder we have only 3 files, so we could go for the sequential execution. Because here if we go to the official documentation, it says the activity iterates in parallel with a maximum of 50 concurrent iterations. This setting should be used with caution. Okay, if the concurrent iterations are writing to the same folder but to different files, this approach is fine. If the concurrent iterations are writing concurrently to the exact same file, this approach most likely cause an error. So we have to be cautious when using parallel execution. So we'll go back here, and now since we have less files, we will go for sequential, and in the items we'll give the property which is to be parameterized and which will be the input for the for each activity. So in the input for the for each activity will be the get metadata activity output, which will be the child items. Okay, we'll not take the direct output, but we'll take the output and the child items. Okay, we could directly also select from the get metadata one child items, or we can select the output and then give dot child items. Why we have selected the child items? Because we have executed the get metadata activity and seen in the get metadata activity output that in the child items we have got the 3 files. Okay, name, type, that is the name of the files, the different CSVs, and what type of files they are, whether they are file or folder. So the type is signifying whether it is file or folder. So now we have to iterate through these files and then copy. Okay, so we have given inside the for each activity the settings, sequential, and the items, and then we'll go to the third tab, which is the activities tab. Okay, so in the activities tab, for each of these files, what we have to do? Okay, so we'll click here the case. Under the case, we have this edit button. So we'll click over the edit button, and now if you see, we are inside the pipeline, inside the for each block. So for each of those files, what we want to do? We want to perform a copy operation. Okay, so the copy activity will select from the move and transform, or you can directly search here copy. So the copy data will take inside the for each block of the pipeline, and then we'll go to the source tab, and in the source tab we'll select the dataset which we have created for the get metadata activity. The name was for each input. Okay, so we have selected the dataset which we have taken for the get metadata activity. We could create a new dataset and then parameterize too. That is another approach, but we are going to take the same dataset and we will make use of the file path type here as wildcard file path, because this dataset, if we open, it is only selected up to the folder level. We have not defined the files here, right? But in the copy data activity, we have to give the file level. Okay. So since we have selected the source dataset as the same use for the get metadata activity, and this for each input dataset is only pointed up to the folder level, not up to the file level. So we, in the copy data activity source, we have to select the file path type, which is wildcard file path. So why we have to go for wildcard file path? Because we have to give the file, okay, file which is coming from the previous, that is the for each activity. And if we try to validate the mapping here, okay, it will throw us the validation errors. Okay, so the first one is for sync dataset. The second one is file path of dataset for each input is a folder. Okay, because for each input which we have selected is a folder, the wildcard file name is required for copy data 1, and the other one is for the sync, which we'll select now. So here we'll make use of file path type and we'll select the file wildcard file path. So the test input folder, we are now inside the test input folder in the wildcard file paths, wildcard folder path, and then here the third option, we will here try to give the wildcard file name. Okay, so how we'll give the file name? We'll add the dynamic content. So we'll click on the dynamic content and we'll take the for each current item. For each iterator, we have this current item. Okay, so we have seen in the official documentation that each item coming in the for each activity and the iteration which is happening is denoted by item. Okay, so this is the item, and since the item is iterated over the child item's name, we will give here item dot name. Okay, so for each item, the name attribute, okay, or the name element. Why we have selected item dot name? Because since we have executed the pipeline here, we go here, we have performed the execution, and inside these child items we have two attributes, name and type. So that's why for these items we cannot directly select items, we have two elements here, so we'll select the name. Okay, so let's go back here inside the for each block, and inside the source of the copy activity we have given the file as the file which is coming from the for each activity and item dot name. Okay, so we have given here, and now we will disable the recursive option because we don't want to perform it recursively, and we'll go to the sync level. Now at the sync level we'll select the output location. So it will be the same storage into account, and we'll take a delimited text. We'll name it as for each output. The link service we already have for the storage account. The file path, we'll go to the test output folder this time, and we'll create a new folder. Okay, so we'll select up to this level only, and here we'll give the directory name, that is inside the test output folder. Let's make the directory name as for each output folder. Okay, and the files will be generated here. First row as header, import schema none, and click OK. Okay, and if we open this dataset, the settings which we gave while creation of this dataset is intact. Now we'll go back to the pipeline and we'll try to validate this pipeline. So pipeline has been validated. There are no validation errors. Okay, so now we'll go here and we'll try to, now we are in the main pipeline and we'll try to perform a debug run. So let's wait for the pipeline to finish. Get metadata activity is in progress. Now for each has started and the copy operation is in progress. Let's click on refresh. And yes, the execution of the pipeline has completed successfully for all the activities. So what happens is that in the output, we got the child item, that is the 3 different CSVs. And in the for each activity, we have got the items count, that is the number of files which were there in the get metadata activity. And then in the copy data 1, what happens is that the first file came. Okay. So if we open the copy data 1, the first occurrence of the copy activity, we have got the wildcard file name as dupes_input.csv. If we go to the test input folder, the first file was dupes_input.csv. So the wildcard file name takes the item.name as dupes_input.csv and perform the task of copy operation here. Then if we go open the copy data 1, the occurrence 2, it has taken mdata.csv. Okay, the second occurrence. And if we go next in the copy data 1, here it has taken students.csv, the third file. Okay. So we'll go back here and we'll close this. So it has taken the input, and if we go to the output, it has written the output which we have given in the location. So if we go to the output location which we have defined, okay, so the output we have defined inside the test output, and here while running of the pipeline, we have given a new folder name as for each output. So that should be generated and the file should be present here. So let's click on refresh to see the output. Yep. So we have for each output folder created here. If we click over it, we could see the 3 files copied in the folder. So this is how we make use of the for each activity to copy the files together from one folder location to another folder location in ADLS Gen 2. Okay. So this is one example of using the for each activity. We can perform other operations too inside the for each block. So let's first publish the changes and take another example, simple example. So let's close this and we'll create another pipeline. So let's create a new pipeline. We'll name it as for each using variables. Okay, so let's go back, and this time we'll directly take the for each activity in the canvas. From the iteration and conditionals, we'll take the for each activity in the canvas, and as it is demonstrated here in the standard documentation, by creating variables, they are trying to iterate through those variables and apply some conditions. Here they have not applied conditions, we'll try to apply here in the demonstration. We'll go to the canvas, we'll not click on the activity, we'll directly click on the white space here so that the 4 options appear here: parameters, variables, settings and output. So we'll go to the variable section and try to create new variable named as, let's say we'll take countries, and the input should be of array type, and we'll define here, let's say India, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Singapore, and close it. Okay, so here we have defined array of countries. The default value we have given for this variable. Okay, and we'll go to the for each activity now, and we'll go to the settings tab. We'll make it sequential again, and in the items we will give the incoming item for this for each activity. So we'll click on the dynamic content, and since we have given variables, so we'll go to the section here called variables and select the countries. Okay, so once we select the countries, it will give us @variables countries, the countries which we have given in the pipeline variables. Okay, so we'll click on OK. Now we'll go to the third tab, activities, that for these variables what action we want to perform. So we'll click on the case edit button here. So the countries array which we have given, we want to apply some condition. So let's say if from the countries array if a particular country will say is not present in the incoming array of countries, then we'll fail this pipeline. Okay, and we'll do this using the condition. Okay, so we'll use the if condition here. We'll create a different video for the if condition activity too, but as of now we are using this if condition to apply the condition check over the items which are coming from the for each activity. Okay, so we are inside the if condition now, and we have the second tab, that is the activities tab, where we have to give the expression inside the if condition. Okay, how the condition evaluation will happen. So expression of the if condition activity, the value must evaluate to true or false. Okay, so here we have to give the condition whether the country belongs to the input array or not. Okay, so in order to check that, what we'll do is we'll go to the functions and we'll say using the function contains, and it returns true if dictionary contains a key, list contains value, or string contains a substring. And inside this contains, we will give the input array. The input array is in the form of variables, so we'll go to the variable section and select the countries. Okay, and inside this countries, let's say we are looking for India. Okay, so the syntax says if inside the array of countries which are coming from the pipeline variables India is present, then do form the case. Okay, so we'll give the case later. So we have defined the if condition here in the expression of the if condition activity. So if the variables coming from the country array contains India, if it is true and if it is false, perform some operation. If it is true, perform nothing. Okay, so this is just for demo purpose, so we'll not perform anything. And if it is false, if it is not containing India, then just fail this activity. Okay, so the fail activity is present inside the general tab with the name as fail, and here we need not do much. We'll just give a error message, country not present, and error code, some random error code will give, let's say 500. Okay, so this is just for demo purpose. Message displayed in failed activity error body and code such as 500 categorizing error types. Okay, so we have just given it so that we'll execute this and demo this. Okay, so if the countries array contain India, then it is true, we need not perform anything. If it does not contain India, then we have to fail this set. Okay, so we'll go back to the for each activity here and we'll try to validate this for each and perform a debug run. Refresh. All completed. What happens is that in the for each block we have items count 5. Why 5? Because we have given here in the variables 5 different countries. Okay, and if we go again to the output and we have the different if conditions block here. For each of these 5 items, it has performed the condition. Okay, so the condition, if condition, it is performed and it is succeeded, means it has checked the condition which is given inside the if condition. Okay, it has checked that the variables is containing India, so it has passed it, that is it has performed nothing. And this is just for the demo purpose so that we can illustrate the usage of for each activity. And let's say now we want to make the false statement true, then we'll go here in the expression and we'll write here if not contains. Okay, so if the input array not contains India, okay, so that will be the if condition, and if we now try to debug it, we'll get this fail activity here. And here we could see that everything has failed for us. Okay, and failed here in the fail activity, we could see the user configuration issue, the error code is given, and the details which we gave by hard coding inside the fail activity. So this was just for demo purpose using the input variables inside the for each activity. So I hope you have got the understanding of for each activity usage in ADF. Thank you for watching the video. If you have any queries or doubts, do let me know in comments. Thank you. Happy learning. Bye.